Good morning, Balu. Thank you so much for joining us for Experion's first webinar series. Welcome everyone to webinar season 1 with Experion. Today we're going to talk about V2X Communication. We are in conversation with Balu K R, who is one of our consultants in the transportation and logistics practice. So V2X Communications is a very hot trending topic right now. Gartner reports had suggested that by the end of 2020, we would have over 250 million connected vehicles on the road. This isn't a reality just as yet because as Balu will be talking to us, it is still an emerging field. V2X refers to a vehicle's ability to connect and communicate to anything. It's one of the most vital components for the viability of self-driven cars. And in fact, Gartner analyst, Mr. Jones, has gone so far as to say that V2X communication capabilities might even become a legal requirement for cars going forward. So given this background and given this fascinating field that you are working in, Balu, could you tell me what are the benefits of this emerging field and why is V2X communication so popular today?
Thanks, Elia. Like before we start, we'll just go through what is V2X. V2X is like vehicle to anything communication. So it could be like I'm driving a vehicle and I am communicating with with another vehicle that is nearby. It could be like a vehicle communicating to a pedestrian or presence of a pedestrian in the road being communicated to vehicle. So that's V2b again. Then we have the vehicle to infrastructure communication. That means like a vehicle getting the information about signals beforehand. Right now, what is happening is like we see the vehicle, then we take the necessary action. We either stop or we keep on moving it based on the signal status. So if you know the status of the vehicle beforehand, like if 1 kilometer ahead, we know that like the next signal will be is in red, we don't need to rush to the spot. We can just slow down a vehicle and move in a defined speed so that we know it's red. There is no point in rushing and going there and waiting it. So that's vehicle to infrastructure. Then we have vehicle to network communications. Like we can have like different units connected in the road, in the different columns in the road, and that devices can communicate to vehicle and give essential information that will add on to our vehicle. Like basically, it improves that safety, and like these are different components that can improve the safety and like overall driving behavior. Okay, it's V2X, and then this was in the market of like people were talking about it like from the late 90s, and in the 90s it was actually not the what we have seen. It's basically wired or communications that it could be radio or any communication to vehicle. And in the recent years, it have been evolving. Like if you see in the after 2016 and all, there have been a lot of V2, V2V, V2I, V2b communications, and a lot of big players are investing heavily on the vehicle-to-vehicle communication. And in future, it will be like this communication will decide our driving. Like this will help us to drive safe, reduce the fuel consumption, make the road safer, like, and a lot of things can be achieved. Like it's still in progress, still in research, but in the next 5 years, we will make a lot of progress in this particular stream. Okay. And like, why do we like, these are just some simple explanations on how V2X can improve our day-to-day life. Or like suppose one simple example could be the pedestrian one, this one, like detecting a vulnerable pedestrians. So it could be like a cyclist or a pedestrian is going to cross a road, and he might be crossing in a road where we don't have a visibility. It could be in a different crossroad junction or something. And suppose we have a roadside unit, it's called RSU or roadside unit. So we have a column there and we have a camera over there. and if the camera can detect the pedestrian, and if that information is passed on to a vehicle that is approaching the junction, the driver of the vehicle can take the necessary action and decide like there is a vulnerable pedestrian crossing, or there is a possible vulnerability or possible hazard that is coming up or building up in the junction, and he can take the necessary actions like either speed down or slow down the vehicle. Similarly, suppose if I am, say, a left turn assist, this one. Suppose I'm approaching a junction and there are blind spots, big buildings over here. So I won't be able to see a vehicle coming from here. And this is not a non-signalized junction where we don't have a signal controlling the traffic. So in that scenario, if these three vehicles can communicate each other, then I know this particular vehicle is approaching the junction. I am also going to turn left. So in that scenario, if I get the information like there are vehicles approaching the junction, I can take the necessary action and like I can slow down, thereby making the road safer. And this is another interesting one. Say you have the emergency vehicle coming in. Right now, to take the action, we have to hear the sound. Then we give in. So if a vehicle can pass on messages like wireless communication or wired communication or the 5G communication, and if the emergency vehicle, either it could be an ambulance or a fire engine or whatever it is, if it can communicate those information to the vehicles nearby, then beforehand the vehicle can take the necessary action and give way for the emergency vehicle. This is some interesting thing which a lot of companies are investing in, and there are a lot of vehicles actually in the market which have this particular feature. Then we can have more, like these are a few use cases that can be benefited. So another one is blind curve.
Okay.
Blind curve is simple, like whenever it's approaching a curve, we can give an hazard warning to the vehicle or the driver to slow down. And the next one is do not pass. So here, if you see this particular vehicle is trying to overtake and another vehicle is approaching. So if you and this could be in a blind spot where he is not able to view the vehicle.
Right.
But if there is a communication, then they will be able to like this driver could actually like wait till this vehicle pass to overtake. So this communication happened via the different devices connected, and it's basically mostly it's V2V communications. And here what we see over here is basically a V2I communication where pedestrians presence will be detected by an roadside camera, and it will be passed to other vehicle. This could also be a V2V communication where we call it ego vehicle, where if you have a dash cam in front of a vehicle which can identify a pedestrian, and this ego vehicle can pass on this information either to the next vehicle via like V2V communication, or it could be via V2I, which says like RSU to OBU. We can communicate it, and then the driver can take the necessary action. This one, again, interesting one, roadworks warning. So if you have information about the roadworks warning, then we could pass that information to the vehicle. So this is again an interesting thing. And there are programs and development happening. Like if you have, like it's called CODA, they have already built-in programs that supports roadworks warning, which we can deploy in or embed in vehicles and do these kind of activities.
Okay. You were mentioning, Balu, about how, V2X is still evolving field and how we're probably going to take another 5 years before we see this becoming something common or something that's deployed in cars that are on the road regularly. So could you talk to me about some interesting research that's happening in this field, interesting activities being undertaken by some big players?
Okay, this will be the one thing which players are bigly investing. Like there are a lot of videos available on how this works and all, and like all the major players are investing in the V2X or the V2B communications. Like we have Ford, Toyota, Volkswagen, Audi. Like most of them are investing in it. And like if you have seen, like there's a Volkswagen Golf model which have a V2B communications in it that's embedded with the V2B communications. And this interesting video is actually available in the Volkswagen channel in the YouTube. And where they are showing is basically, suppose a vehicle is traveling in, and suppose an emergency vehicle is approaching the particular vehicle. Then we have like the driver of the vehicle who is driving the Volkswagen Golf will be indicated like emergency vehicle is approaching and please give way.
Okay.
So that the driver can take the necessary action where he can steer or give way to the emergency vehicle.
Okay.
And similarly, all the big car manufacturers, and like I'm talking mostly about a car, there are a lot of other players also. The infrastructure players are also investing in it.
Okay.
This is mostly the car manufacturers which are they are also investing in it. There are also players like Koda, which who manufactures RSUs and OBUs. There are also infrastructure players like camera manufacturers. There will be speed cameras. There will be a lot of speed camera being manufactured, and their major revenue is basically when the car they break a law, they go over speed or they jump a red light. So once we move into an autonomous space, then these things will reduce, like the red light violations, the overspeed violations. So they are also investing into these sort of things where they can improve or diversify their business into different sectors.
All right. So I know that we are doing some interesting work in this space at Experion. We have one project where you've been leading this V2x project that we've been doing. So can you speak to us a little about what this project is at Experion and what your experience has been with working on this project?
Okay. I will just explain it. Like some of the points have been already covered. Okay. What we are doing here is basically we have like it's with a aim to make the road safer. So there will be pedestrians and cyclists, motorcycle, like anyone who doesn't have a metal covering. So those are vulnerable road users. So when a pedestrian is crossing the road, the pedestrians could be crossing in a blind spot or a junction or in a blind curve where the driver won't be able to see the pedestrians only if when they reach near the pedestrian, they will be able to see the pedestrians. So there could be different scenarios over there. So what we are like, this is kind of a proof of concept trial phase that we are doing it for a company in UK. Okay. And what we have here, doing here is basically like it's pedestrian identification. So for the first step is like we have cameras mounted in the roads. So that particular camera will capture the image frame. And from the image frame, we extract the objects. Like it's an image processing where we extract the objects. And we identify whether it's a pedestrian or cyclist or motorcyclist, like anything that doesn't have a metal coverage. Then we identify it. So the next step is basically we have to communicate, like once an object is identified, like a pedestrian who is vulnerable is identified. The next step would be like we have to communicate that to the nearby vehicle where the pedestrian is located. So we use an RSU, like it's roadside unit. From the camera, the object is identified. That when we are thinking like there is an possible vulnerable pedestrian in the road, we communicate that information to the roadside unit. That's called RSU. And from the RSU, this particular information will be pushed to the vehicles nearby. And for the vehicle, what they do is like we don't go to the OBDs and do braking, or like we don't do any side of actions in the vehicle. What we are doing here is basically only alerting the vehicle. So it's like an Alexa alert, or like OBU we can attach audio devices to the OBU. So basically we alert the driver like there is a possible pedestrian in the road, take necessary action. So it's up to the driver to take the action, but we still have like before seeing the pedestrian, like before driver seeing the pedestrian itself, we will be in a position to alert the driver on the presence of a pedestrian. So it's possible danger in the road where they need to be aware of, or they need to be aware of basically. So what we have used here is basically we have an object detection software which extracts a frame. Then we have RSUs, we have OBUs. Here we are using the company called Koda. The devices are from Koda. It's called Koda RSU and Koda OBUs. Okay. And we use like CPM, like the messaging format it's a standard messaging format used in V2X. It's called denim and it's called CPM. So this is basically used to communicate between the vehicle and the OBUs and RSUs. This is the work that we are actually currently doing, and this is not something that we can readily roll out into mass production or anything. This is basically a proof of concept. We have developed the first phase, and we have tested inside a vehicle and all, but we have to evolve this and make it into a production-ready product.
All right. Okay, so what are your final thoughts on this field? Do you agree with the market trends that predict that this is going to become something that's a very integral part of life on the road?
Definitely, it will be like the initial phase is basically like right now it's just pedestrian identification and all. But when it comes to autonomous vehicle and all, these things will be of this are going to make a major role, like identifying the pedestrians or identifying other vehicles, distance between other vehicles, and if I'm coming closer to a vehicle, then I should be alerted and the vehicle should actually brake or slow down. So like any communication is going to be very critical in the future years, and I think this will evolve in the next few years. There will be a lot of changes happening in this particular domain.
All right, thank you so much for your time, Balu. This was an extremely insightful session, and it's especially interesting to hear about what we are doing at Experion.
Thank you.
Thank you.